Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Today TV. I'm Sakshi Batra and this is Market Today, a show where we'll help you understand all the opening cues of the stock markets today and how the market's likely to trade a day after the union budget was presented in the parliament yesterday. The budget, of course, had a lot of positive points that cheered the markets in the first 1 hour or 2 hours of trade. We did see a 1100 point of a rally on the Sensex, but then we did see the Adani Group stocks really hogging the limelight and some other reports of Credit Suisse really creating fresh concerns on the Adani Group right after the Hindenburg report and the massive sell-off that we've been witnessing on the Adani Group stocks over the last 3 to 4 sessions. And then last night, we did hear from the board of Adani Group that they have decided to call off and pull the massive 20,000 crore rupees FPO of Adani Enterprises. And this morning, we also heard the chairman in a video message talk about why this decision was really taken. This is going to be the focus of this hour's discussion. We will have experts really decode as to what is really happening with the Adani Group and what should be now your strategy in case you're an investor or a potential investor in the Adani Group stocks. But first up, let's listen in to what the chairman, Gautam Adani, had to say about this.
After a fully subscribed FPO, yesterday's decision of his withdrawal would have surprised many. But considering the volatility of the market seen yesterday, our board strongly felt that it would not have been morally correct to proceed with the FPO. In my humble journey of over 4 decades as an entrepreneur, I have been blessed to receive overwhelming support from all stakeholders and particularly the investor community. It is important for me to confess that whatever little I have achieved in life is due to the faith and trust reposed by them. I owe all my success to them. For me, the interest of my investor is paramount and everything is secondary. Hence, to insulate the investors from potential losses, we have withdrawn the FPO. After a fully subscribed...
So there you heard Chairman Gautam Adani really talking about the rationale behind the decision that was taken last night of withdrawing the massive, the biggest FPO in the history of India, 20,000 crore rupees FPO. Amid all these concerns of the Hindenburg reports, the FPO did sail through. We did see 112% subscription. It was fully subscribed, albeit by the institutional investors. The retail investors portion was still very dismal, but we did see on the last day some of the big heavyweights, institutional investors really coming in to help and bail out the FPO. But then Gautam Adani really talking about how it would have been morally incorrect in the current market morally correct in the current market conditions to really withdraw the FPO at this point in time. And he did point out how the interest of investors is paramount to him and the group as well. Let's now welcome our guests on the show. We do have Avinash Gorakhshakar joining in from Profit Mart Securities. He's the Director of Equity Research right there to help us understand his own take on why this decision was taken and what can we really expect going forward. Good morning, Avinash, and thank you so much for taking the time out for this discussion as well. Well, in a surprise move and a U-turn, we did see the developments overnight. The big question that really strikes everyone is that why did Gautam Adani have to do this when the FPO was fully subscribed? What's your take? Avinash, are you on mute? We are unable to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Right. Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So I think Sakshi, very clearly yesterday's decision was quite surprising considering the fact that the FPO was fully subscribed. I think today's statement, which Mr. Adani has made is quite genuine in the sense that, he's got a moral responsibility for the investors considering the sharp volatility we saw in almost every Adani group share yesterday. But I think one thing which needs to be noted also is the fact that whatever growth plans the company had outlined, for green hydrogen, repayment of debt to the banks. Now these are plans which are going to go back on the back burner.
Yeah.
Although the current debt serviceability of the company continues to be good, I think we could see a lot of volatility in the counters today, considering the fact that this is definitely a massive disappointment for the group, also for the investors, because clearly that means that at least for the next 3 to 6 months, it is unlikely that they would now make their plans to go public. So it's going to be a little difficult for them in the near term, considering the kind of strong headwinds they are facing. And I think over a period of time, it's going to be only their performance and I think their execution track records, which are now going to be under the scanner. So I think, if you ask me what is going to be the impact of this news flow today, you could see a little bit of bounce in these stocks, but at higher levels, you could see some selling pressure. So I would say that investors need to be careful. These are going to be extremely volatile in the coming weeks.
Okay, the stocks could be volatile in the coming weeks as well. We are looking at the opening of the markets. Of course, we did see some positive handover from the US markets, and then the Asian markets also opened in the green, but the SGX Nifty was indicating a lower start for the Indian markets, and that's despite this positive handover. Overnight, we also saw the FOMC really going ahead with that 25 basis points rate hike, which was largely on the expected lines. Jerome Powell's comments definitely coming about as to whether that disinflationary trend is here. But at this point in time, he wanted to caution for premature, decisions as far as the inflation is concerned. So ruling out the rate cuts anytime in 2023, but definitely some positive indications coming on that front as well. But all of that perhaps may get negated because of the kind of domestic flows that we are seeing. We're already seeing the market opening. So let's focus on that first, and then we will continue on the markets as well. Right now, the Indian markets have opened on a lower note. If you see, the Sensex has opened at 421 points lower at 59,293. The Nifty has opened below 17,500 mark. 17,470 is the current level. 148 points down in trade right there. In terms of the other, indicators, in terms of the broader markets, we are seeing a downward fall right there too. About 0.5% lower for the small caps, 0.4% decline for the mid caps right there. India VIX is up by 2%, 17.1 for that one. In terms of the other sectors, if you see, there are a few sectors that are holding up. Looking at FMCG, IT and metals right now, they're still up in the green, with the IT really leading the pack. But what's really looking at the losses at this point, I mean, of course, Nifty Bank is down by 0.8%. The PSU banks by 2.8% as well. Private banks down by 0.5%. And the financial services, in fact, taking a bigger beating of about 1% or so in the morning trade. When you look at the realty space, that's also seen some declines at this moment. In terms of the advance decline ratio, you have 34 declines to 16 advances, with the Grasim, ITC, Bajaj Auto, HCL Tech and Infosys taking a bigger beating in the morning trade, and emerging as the top losers. But what's really come up on the screens in gainers, Adani Enterprises up by 2%, even though the pre-opening trade suggested a 10% fall. Adani Ports is up by 2%, SBI Life, Britannia and Bajaj Finance up by 0.3% also. So some of those Adani stocks, let's actually pull up all those Adani stocks to see how are they trading at this point in time, looking at all 7 of them, and of course ACC and Ambuja after that as well. So Adani Enterprises, we'll look at the current stocks as well. We'll see how they are doing. But let's look at how, Avinash, you see the opening at this point in time for the Adani Group stocks.
Yeah, as I mentioned to you, Sakshi, clearly the Adani Group stocks could see a little bit of bounce. Some sort of short covering could emerge in the market, because in the past few days, a lot of shorts had been created in this, group of stocks, and I think we saw that yesterday. But I think once now the FPO has been called off, I think obviously that would mean that most of the short sellers would try to cover their position. So in the near term, expect a short bounce. But in the medium to long term, I think the all the group companies would definitely trade in a very narrow range, considering the fact that the management would again have to prove to the markets that everything is fine, fundamentals are okay. And if you see the stock prices of Adani, port yesterday, or Ambuja Cement yesterday, the kind of beating which the stocks took was quite massive. So I think in both these stocks, one could see a good bounce, considering that fundamentals here are pretty good. These companies have got good cash flows. But again, sentiment has been hurt very badly, Sakshi. And I
Yes, you're
think
right, Avinash. In fact, Adani Enterprises has now slipped 10% lower. After opening slight in the green, we did see that 10% fall coming in. And most of the other stocks have also seen, a lower start as well. 5% lower for the Adani Ports as well. Let's look at, in fact, Adani Ports is also down by 10% now. About 49 rupees lower, 445 is the level at which it is trading at. Talk about Adani Total Gas, 10% down in trade again. So, although there's some inching up from that 10% lower mark, Adani Wilmar down 5% to Adani Transmission down 10%. All of it, it's a carnage again that is following. How do you see this? Despite the clarification coming in from Gautam Adani, despite pulling off the FPO, the stocks are still quite nervous.
no, I think most of these stocks were trading at peak valuations, Sakshi, and I think whatever clarification the management has given, finally the market is the final verdict maker. I think unless and until the market gets confidence on these companies, it is unlikely that we could see a very sharp bounce in the very near term. As I was mentioning to you, in the very near term, there's a lot of uncertainty. People are not looking at fundamentals. It is only sentiment which is now working, in favor of the Adani Group stock. So I think it's going to be a lot of time before one could take an investment call here. So I think it's better to be a little away from these stocks, at least for the near term. I think longer term, of course, things would settle down, but at least in the next few weeks, markets are now a little worried that the Adani bonds also are now trading at a steep discount. There are some news reports saying that some foreign agencies have stopped margin funding for these bonds. So I think these kind of news flows in the market would obviously also have an impact on the stock prices of the Adani Group. So I think it's better to be a little cautious now. Let the water settle down, and at that point of time, when things stabilize, I think probably you could see some value buying emerging here, but it could take a little longer than expected.
Okay, let's also welcome Kranti Patini also joins in right here. Avinash, you stay on with us from Wealthman Securities. We have Kranti. Good morning, Kranti, for joining in. You've been with us through the coverage of Adani Group stocks. In fact, I remember the day, we first saw the carnage on Adani Group stocks, and that time you were with us on the show as well. Throughout these 3-4 trading sessions, the way the news developments have taken place, and last night's surprise U-turn, what do you make of it, and what does it really talk about the credibility of the group?
See, the credibility of the group is in line, okay, because today morning Gautam Adani himself came in front of the public and shared his message to the investors. But the problem is there is a panic is mongering across all the counters of Adani Group, and there is no respite for the selling. So all of a sudden, last night the surprising news is they have withdrawn the much hyped and much discussed FPO, and they are returning back the 20,000 crores back to the investors. It's a measure, of course, to as an indication to for the as the stock has lost nearly 35% on yesterday. So it is a positive move, and also it's a bold move from Adani Group. Now, the morning the news is yesterday the panic created in Adani Group. The Credit Suisse has stopped accepting Adani's securities, the bonds, as a collateral. This morning the news is even in fact in line with the Credit Suisse. Citigroup Wealth also stopped accepting Adani paper, which is the securities, the bond paper, accepted as a collateral further. So it is creating a ripple effect across the companies of Adani Group. So I advise the investors at this point of time, just stay away, because these are the high beta stocks, and when the fire is on the group, even though the companies which have a decent value also, they tend to correct. And the stocks were in a bull trend, because in a bull market, in a bull trend, the stocks, irrespective of the fundamentals, irrespective of the conventional wisdom of the modeling of the companies, they tend to go up. When these kind of allegations, these kind of fears that mongers, nobody, the market don't see what kind of solace comments are coming, what kind of evidence they're giving. Market don't see, and we can see for that reason only there is a complete selling that is created across the Adani Group shares. In fact, Adani Enterprises in the trading, it opened at 10%, and now it's
Yes.
down again.
Yes, absolutely. There's a sharp fall on Adani Enterprises and ripple effect being seen across the group stocks as well. Mr. Gorakshakar, I wanted to understand, there are reports coming in that SEBI is probing the Adani share crash now. SEBI is going to be examining the recent crash in Adani Group shares. It's looking into any possible irregularities in the Adani FPO. The probe will even go on as Adani Enterprises FPO was called off, and SEBI will also be looking at a possible price manipulation. All those concerns that were raised initially in the Hindenburg report as well. How do you really look at this kind of statements coming in? And in case the SEBI probe really goes on, what could that mean for the stock prices going forward? Could they remain lower for longer and continue to fall at this pace?
Yeah, I think Sakshi, clearly, we don't know whether this SEBI probe is going to happen or not. But if it does happen, it definitely will create a little more kind of problem, at least in the near term. Markets definitely have already become panicky. We have seen a lot of selling happening, especially delivery-based selling. So my sense is that, I think whatever happens, obviously, the brunt of it would have to be faced by the Adani Group companies. And in the near term, as I mentioned to you earlier, that over the next, say, 3 to 6 months, it would take a process of consolidation before the Adani Group stocks actually again bounce back. Because earlier, what used to happen was in the earlier sessions, 1 or 2 days of selling used to result in a sharp bounce back on the third or the fourth day. But this time, the damage has been very significant. And I think it could take a longer time for this Adani Group stocks to actually recover. So next 3 to 6 months is going to be a very challenging period for all these group companies.
Okay. Mr. Batini, I wanted to understand from you what I initially spoke to Mr. Gorakshakar also all about, that what does it now really mean for all those investors who had invested in the stock as well and the FPO as well. Now the money will be returned to them, but what really happens to all those investors now, and how soon will they get this money?
As early as
Mr.
possible,
Yeah.
as early as possible, they will be refunding the money to the investors. In fact, the retail participation is very limited, so there will not be any problem. They will be getting the money back into their accounts. As the money has been for the FPO, it is blocked as a ASBA. So the money will be released into the accounts of the investors only. Since the issue
Okay.
has not completed, the money is just blocked in the investors, whoever applied, and it's released into their bank account right now.
Right,
So
right.
it's not a problem. But as you mentioned, the existing investor, what should they do? Suppose the investors invested in Adani Group shares, any of the shares in the bottom of the cow, they would have been sitting still a fabulous amount of return. So when there is a carnage like this is coming and nobody have any clue, both the technical as well as fundamental indicators don't suggest or can't give any clue where this carnage will stop.
Sure.
Better to book profit and come out of this stock, because every day it's coming. If I stay
Yeah.
invested for one day, there is an incremental damage to the portfolio.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Gorak Shakar, like you also initially pointed out, that what really happens to the debt reduction plan. This FPO, was brought in for the purpose of debt repayment at large as well. So will that get derailed? You already have the debt payments that were supposed to be furnished from Adani Group, about $35 million in bond coupons due this week. Adani Transmission was also up for a $10 million coupon payment on Friday. So how does all of that really take shape? Will there be any derailing right there?
No, I don't think, Sakshi, because see, currently all these companies are generating, cash flow, and I think the current debt serviceability is not under question. I think the markets would obviously factor in the fact that growth would have to be scaled down, because this FPO was basically to fuel new growth in areas like green hydrogen also. So I think growth quotient is going to be now questioned by the markets, by the analyst community, and I think that is very important, because if growth comes down, then I think the entire trajectory of Adani Group was fueled by the fact that their growth was immense, and it was being fueled by new projects and by new businesses. So I think debt serviceability is not going to be a problem. But yes, growth going forward is something which most of the analysts will now like to cross-check with the management in terms of the numbers and execution.
Right. Mr. Patini, do you also agree that the high growth expansion plans that the FPO was supposed to furnish for the company, especially like Mr. Gorakshaka pointed out, the green hydrogen business, the airport business, the high growth business for the company, all of those expansion plans, will the group have to go back to the board to revisit and to see how these plans should be worked out now that they will have to return all this money to the investors?
one thing is we need to see the yesterday's statement. They are going to go along with their expansion plans are concerned and through the internal accruals. So right now, how they are going to make the internal accruals is the big question. Of course, they have decent cash flows. They could be able to mobilize more than $2.5 billion through from the uh, HNI investors and different institutions. So for them, mobilizing the liquidity is not a problem. But the question is, they need to address and uh, they need to address the concerns of the investors and why these kind of panic selling that has been getting triggered on the stocks. So once this gets settled, they can further think about the expansion plans. Right now, the question in front of the investors is how they are going to address the current concerns rather than going ahead about the future expansion plans.
Absolutely. Mr. Korak also wanted to understand from you with respect to the lenders. Even though, we do know that the domestic lenders don't have, a large exposure to the group right there, but then the stocks have been falling like crazy as well. After the Adani Group stocks, we've seen the PSU banks crashing too. And, especially the stocks of, say, LIC, SBI, these kind of investors also have also seen sharp fall in their stocks as well. How does one really approach these pockets now?
No, I think as far as the banks are concerned, banks like State Bank of India have, categorically mentioned that they have their assets covered comfortably well by the, group's cash flows as well as the asset collateral. And I think whatever, bloodbath we have seen in the Adani Group shares is unlikely to actually create a problem as far as the debt serviceability of these banks are concerned. I think my guess is, unless and until the market gets a reassurance that growth is going to come back, things are normal, and I think this volatility in the share prices now completely goes away. Till that time, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty, Sakshi. But I would not be surprised. Banks like SBI, as well as some of the private sector banks, they are unlikely to be impacted significantly by this kind of news flow which is prevailing in the market. So I think the banks are safe. The only point is the sentiment is definitely negative, and to that extent, you could see some further correction in stock prices.
Okay, understood that. Mr. Patini, what is your take then on for all those investors? Of course, you're saying that the fresh investors should absolutely stay away at this point in time. But what about those investors who've actually held on to the group stocks all through the wealth creation time of 2022, and they are now feeling quite nervous with their positions at this point in time? Some of them may have actually lost the entire profit that they had been sitting on. What should they do now?
The existing investors, they need to have a strict stop losses because every day we are thinking that there will be a rebound will be coming, and we don't know when that rebound will come. So it's a pure speculation right now. If the existing investor is sitting at a good amount of profit and you want to hold on to the portfolio, my suggestion to the investor is at least take back your capital, because capital is paramount for any investor's portfolio, and remaining amount is just a bonus for the investor, and he can take some calculated risk in the portfolio. As the stock have been keep on coming down, it's like a falling knife. Don't try to
Yeah.
catch the falling knife at this point of time. Uh, and there are also spillover effect on the stocks like State Bank of India and all, as you mentioned. There's nothing to worry because they're categorically giving a statement that the exposure for them is just limited and it's manageable. So any opportunity in banks, names like State Bank of India, yesterday the stock in the middle of the day, it came down 10% and it again regained. It went to the level of 500 rupees also. So any kind of that panic events that creates pressure on other banking stocks, it's a good opportunity for the investors to chip into those kind of names
Yeah.
right now.
Right. Mr. Gaurav Shakar, we were discussing about that point as well, that how Credit Suisse Private Bank halted the margin loans on the Adani bonds. And today we are getting some reports that Citigroup's wealth unit has also halted the margin loans on Adani securities. Do you expect more and more, groups to be announcing something like this? And can it also be, creating some incremental loss for the group stocks going forward?
Yeah, I think it's difficult to now foresee how many more agencies actually, restrict margin funding here. But my sense is, Sakshi, that whenever such kind of horrendous falls happen, most of the existing investors who also are in profit in such group companies would prefer to sell out, and they would also be little cautious and wary. As far as other agencies are concerned, all of them are going to watch the movement in the stock prices for for the last 2 days, the stocks have dropped by almost 35%. So that is a massive drop. So I think clearly this kind of drop is not due to any basic fundamental reason. It is something more than that. So I think unless and until this issue is resolved earlier, most of the agencies are now going to be on the fence. So nobody is going to go aggressive and nobody is going to be very positive. At least in the near term, everybody will stand cautious and will obviously monitor the stock prices on a minute to minute basis. So I think it's better to wait and watch rather than commenting on whether many more agencies would actually stop margin funding for Adani Group stocks.
Right. Avinash, right now Adani Enterprises is now down 13, 14, even 15%. I saw it lower as well. So it's now slipping below that 1900 mark. The fall is just not stopping anywhere. 1869 right now. So what does one do? Really, should one exit the positions at this point in time? Those who've been holding on the position, is that the wise thing to do at this point?
Re-enter if you want at a time when everything looks normal, things stabilize. But at this point of time, it's better to reduce your exposure here.
Let me just understand from you as well, going forward from here, do you think that the IPO plans, the group had also announced there were about 4 or 5 IPOs coming in going forward. Will those plans also get derailed then? And do you think that because of this kind of a carnage that we have seen, will that also have a sentimental impact on future prospective buyers of Adani IPOs as well?
Yeah, definitely, Sakshi. There will be an impact on the future prospects also, because first they need to settle down the dust and they need to regain the investor confidence. And the volatility in the stocks have settled down, and they need to mention and address the current concerns of the investors right now. Once this dust gets settled down, and once the stocks again, if they regain their glory back again, they can go for the further expansion plans in terms of raising money from the public and also going for the new IPOs right now. But it's premature to say at this point of time. But definitely the kind of sentiment that is drawing on Adani Group will derail all these plans.
Okay, but Mr. Gorakshakar, what else can the group really come out and do? What will really satisfy the investors, calm the nerves of the markets as well at this point in time? Of course, Chairman himself early this morning has given that video message talking about how the interest of investors is paramount to him, but that has not really had any impact on the group stocks. The stocks are still falling. What will it take for the group to really come out and do so that the investors and the markets really build on the confidence yet again?
Yeah, I think I would like to add to what Kranti said. As far as FPO plans are concerned, I think at least next 3 to 6 months, actually, one can comfortably say that these plans are now going to be put on the back burner.
Okay.
And as Kranti actually mentioned, the near term, challenge is to actually control what the market is telling them in terms of the current share prices. And as far as more reassurance from the Adani Group, I think Mr. Gautam Adani has done a very good thing by coming out and expressively saying what are the key reasons for the withdrawal of the FPO. But if they could address the institutional investor concerns, typically, by having maybe some, investor meetings or organizing some conference calls, that could also add a little bit of benefit to the group, because clearly, the management would put its point very clearly. And if there are any doubts, then that also could get resolved. So I think, it's going to be a long process, but I think the management would definitely try to ensure that, these things are a part and parcel of their investor relations team, which would add a little bit of comfort, to the institutional investors, which are also having a huge positions in these stocks.
Right. And do you also believe that the IPO plans may also get further derailed and that will also be perhaps put on the back burner? The 5 IPO
I think
companies?
most of the companies which, most of these companies, Sakshi, unlikely are going to make any public issue at least for the next 3 to 6 months. And I think that is going to obviously be not good, at least in the medium term. But I think looking at the current trend, I think it's better for them to actually now focus on the current challenge rather than talking about the future FPO plans.
Sure. Mr. Batini, what about you? I mean, do you also believe that the group has really done the right thing by pulling out the FPO at this point in time? But what else can the group really do to come out and calm the nerves for the investors?
Till now, they are maintaining a monologue. That means they are only speaking. They are not listening what investors are saying. Now they need to start, as Avinash rightly told, they need to start the investor meetings and the dialogues. They need to start. that will bring and gain the investor confidence back. And clearly, they need to address the queries. Of course, they have come up with a detailed uh, uh, press note, detailed queries that raised by Hindenburg report. But still, the panic is still there with respect to the investors are concerned. So one thing is they need to build the confidence of the investors back on the markets again.
Sure. Mr. Korak Shakar, what does it really have in it for the investors to learn from such an incident? We've seen that the Adani Group has a huge group name. I mean, it's not just any small group. And obviously a group that is a conglomerate and is present in almost every sector that provides growth to the economy, and part takes in that as well. Even, as a response to Hindenburg report, Gautam Adani in fact said he equated his own group to India when he said that, in Hindenburg report has in fact done a calculated, impact on the, India's image as well. So looking at this kind of huge conglomerate, when that gets impacted, what does it really talk about? That how should investors be really looking at the fundamentals of any of the companies that they would want to have in their own portfolios? If not an Adani Group, then how do we judge, what kind of companies, if they have sound companies in their portfolios or not?
Yeah, I think Sakshi, one thing is very clear that empirically we have seen a lot of companies going under the down largely because of the debt they carry on their balance sheets. So I think whether we like it or not, investors need to be a little cautious when they buy into highly leveraged companies. And I think debt is something which almost all the Adani Group companies have got significantly high on their balance sheets. Of course, it's another thing that this debt is serviced by their current cash flows. But typically, in a downturn, normally leveraged companies get a significant beating from the market. So I think you've got to be very careful on that aspect. And I think, if the debt issue is not resolved soon, then I think getting incremental debt also for the group could be a little problematic. And I think the market would also be a little wary because unless and until, they are not, they are able to service their debt, that would be very important for them. So I think investors need to be cautious on that fact that debt is a double-edged sword. It can work in favor or it can, obviously create a little more damage for the group also. So I think you
Right.
need to keep this in mind.
Right. So, Mr. Gorakshakar, personally, what would you be really looking at from the group right now, and what could actually, what could be something that we should expect going forward from here after all of these developments have taken place over the next few days? What should be the damage control measures that we should look out for?
I think, as I mentioned to you, the group has to communicate with the institutional investors. The group has to come out with its point on a one-to-one basis. And I think, as Kranti pointed out, that I think as of now the statements have come from the Adani management, but there are a lot of unanswered questions from the investor community, which possibly need to be answered. So once that is done, then I think there could be some stability, some kind of realistic kind of movement in the stocks, because this kind of stock movement is completely unwarranted. If you look at Adani Ports, if you look at Ambuja Cements, these are very well managed companies, with very strong cash flows. But the fall in the stock prices has been significantly sharp in the last few days, which actually doesn't warrant fundamental logic at all. So I think a lot of interaction by the Adani Group management with the institutional and the retail investor community will go a long way in helping build the confidence back.
Right. Mr. Patini, what about you? What would you be really looking at from the group now?
The same thing, they need to build the confidence. And as we are discussing, some kind of respite in the stock prices,
Yes.
enterprises is gaining, and as Ambuja Cements also some kind of a positive territory it's trading. So the stocks are highly volatile right now. We need to expect the price stability, and management need to make all the measures, possible measures, to bring the price stability in the stock prices. If the this saga is going to continue, this carnage is going to continue, definitely it will damage the sentiment of the investors. One thing utmost important for the group, Adani as a group is concerned, they need to bring this price stability in the stock prices. That is crucial for the group right now.
Okay, so
Regarding
most of the losses of Adani Enterprises today in the morning have actually now been nearly wiped out. The stock is now down about just 1.5%. It was down 15% at one point in time. So we've seen a sharp recovery from the lowest point of the day for Adani Enterprises. But again, it's slightly volatile. We'll just have to see whether this is sustainable. Now it's back up above 2100 mark as well, but still considerably lower. We did see that the FPO was called off after the stock price. The last trading price yesterday was about 33% lower than the FPO price. So perhaps this has come and as some kind of a respite. Even when we look at the benchmark indices, they have now so some of the stocks are actually inching back into the green. Adani Ports up 1.5%. So some of those stocks are inching up. Even the markets are up in the green. Slight gains coming in. Look at Ambuja Cement. That's up at the day's high, 9% or so for that one too. Let's also look at ACC and some of the other stocks as well. ACC up by 3.6% at this point in time too. The Nifty is trading at 17,638. There's a 0.1% uptick for that one. NDTV still down by 5% or so. But some of the stocks have inched up. The Sensex trading at 59,800, about 89 points up in trade as well. Although slightly, volatile, but the markets are inching up towards, from the lowest point of the day as well. Mr. Korakshaka, how do you see this recovery coming in on Adani Enterprises, Adani Ports, ACC, Ambuja, sharp uptick over there?
See, I think Sakshi, as I mentioned to you earlier, that some bounce back is bound to come. A lot of short covering could obviously result in the near term, bounce back of all these Adani Group companies, including Adani Enterprises, Ambuja Cements, Adani Ports, which were hit very badly yesterday. But I think volatility is something which is very difficult to predict, on a day-to-day basis. So let's hope for the best. But my sense is that gradually things should normalize, and I think market should definitely get a feeling of comfort. Obviously, if today the Adani Group stocks close in green, so I think let's hope for the best.
Absolutely. Let's hope for the best at this point in time. Let's also look at some of the other indicators in the market, and we'll come back to Adani as well. At this point in time, the Nifty is trading at 17,623, up by about 0.04% or so. What's really pulling up the index? Of course, slight recovery coming in on Adani Enterprises and some of the other stocks, but now you do have the auto stocks up in the green as well. IT stocks have inched up higher, 1.1% uptick for that one. Media stocks doing well. FMCG up by 0.9%, 1% uptick for the PSU bank. So perhaps this is what has really led the recovery. PSU banks up by 1% or so. Realty and the private banks as well inching up into the green. What's still sulking in trade is the financial services space. That's still down by 0.3%. Out of the Nifty bank, this is the only component that's down in the red. Metals and pharma also seeing some declines, especially pharma that's down by 0.7% or so right now. When you talk about the market breadth, 27 declines to 23 advances at this point in time. The gainers include stocks from the FMCG basket, Britannia, ITC. Apart from this, we do have IndusInd Bank, SBI Life, and Infosys also up in the green. Adani Enterprises still lower. There's very, very volatility that you can actually see, sharp volatility on Adani Enterprises stock. It's now down by 5% again. So we'll have to constantly monitor. 4% down for Adani Ports now. UPL, HDFC Life, Apollo Hospitals. These are the stocks. That's how they are trading at 0.4% down in trade. So it's a very sharp move that you're really looking at into the markets. Adani Ports back up into the green. 1.8% uptick for that one too, right here as well. Mr. Batini, I also wanted to understand from you, as far as the Adani Group stocks, we've been discussing all these developments. There are also reports that Forbes has really put out that the Adani related companies were the ones that actually funded their own FPO, and now just to sail through. How did you read that story, and your comments on that?
At this minute, the buying interest has came from different family offices and different kind of institutions. But as the FPO has been called up, we need to see how the institutions' behavior with respect to Adani stocks are concerned right now. But just 1 hour of the trade right now, how the day pass is
Yeah.
crucial, because the news has been it's a roller coaster for the news as well as for the stock movement. So we need to wait and watch at this point of time. We're just early in the trade right now.
Right, absolutely, Mr. Gorakshakar. But there would be a lot of temptation among a lot of investors at this point in time after we've seen about 20-30% gone on Adani Enterprises. All those investors who lost the opportunity felt FOMO that you were not a part of the wealth creation journey of the Adani group. How should one really look at that? I mean, like that temptation should be completely put back at this point in time because it's a lot of risk and it will be just like catching a falling knife at this point in time.
Yeah, I think Sakshi, definitely, in the very near term, catching a falling knife is extremely dangerous. But I think you must understand one thing that companies like Ambuja Cements, companies like Adani Ports, ACC, these are all well-established companies in very solid businesses, and where I believe that cash flows are very strong. So I think investors who obviously want to take the advantage of price have to take a slightly longer term call here, because on a day-to-day basis, volatility is going to be extremely high till the water doesn't settle down. You could see stocks going up by 10%, again coming down by 10%. And that is something which is going to unnerve a lot of retail investors. I think retail investors would obviously stay away from the stock because they're not used to this kind of volatility.
Right, absolutely. So, last word from both of you before we wind down the show, and we will continue to track all the developments through the day, and we will keep telling all our investors as to what is really happening in terms of the developments. But last word from both of you, starting with you, Mr. Batini, as to how should investors be really looking at these kind of developments, and in case something like this they've never seen before. Most of these investors have entered the fray in the last 2 to 3 years. For them to be able to see such a sharp, fall in a group stock that has been a wealth creator in 2022. This is a shocker that they are dealing with at this point in time. What would you really tell them?
First thing is for investor psychology, all past declines look like a missed opportunity and all future declines look like a risk. So for Adani Group shares, people who missed the stocks when the stocks have been rallying in past 12 to 18 months, people were in a mood like we missed the opportunity and it was a FOMO. Right now, when the stocks are taking a U-turn and the valuations are correcting, people are scared. So this psychology always remains, always will be there as the new entrants to the investors who are just coming into the market or just joined the bandwagon of investing fraternity in past 6 months to 1 year. They need to understand the volatility and understand the ferocity of the stock movement in terms of the going up and while they're coming down. So, and the investors who have a risk appetite, definitely they can closely watch these stocks and at a right point of time. But the question is, the $1 million question is, what is the right time? So it comes up with different kind of uh, techno as well as fundamental issues one need to understand. And when they chip in at a right time, okay, they can create wealth over a period of time.
Okay, Mr. Gorakshakar, what is your gut feeling at this point in time? Do you see, Gautam Adani really coming back, with a bounce and, recovering all of this loss and coming back stronger after this episode?
Yeah, I think Sakshi, first of all, the kind of hard assets he has created, I think that gives a lot of comfort to the lenders as well as to the investors. And my sense is, there's an old saying that, you have to be fearful when everybody is greedy. And when everybody is fearful, you got to make that contra call. So I think I'm still positive on companies like ACC, Ambuja Cements, Adani Ports, which have got sustainable businesses. So I think, investors who got a high risk appetite can definitely think of chipping in a small allocation of their funds here. But mind you that this has got to be taken with a long-term view. In the short term, the stocks will remain volatile, but
Yeah.
there's no doubt that the group will definitely deliver in the longer term. In the short term, volatility will continue.
Okay, the group will deliver in the longer term, but in the short term, there will be definitely pain that you could see amid all this carnage and the developments that we are seeing on an everyday basis. We will continue to track the Adani Group developments for you so that you can get a better understanding of how do you really see these developments with respect to your own portfolio and investments into the group stocks as well. Many thanks, Mr. Gorakshakar and Mr. Batini, for joining us on the show and sharing with us all those insights about how does one really read through the pulling of the FPO at this point in time, the Hindenburg report and the carnage after that has followed, and what is the future hold for the Adani Group stocks. Many thanks for joining us and sharing with us all those insights. Let's look at the markets at this point in time. 59,764 up by 55 points. Nifty 50 17,602. So there's a mixed trend that you can spot on the benchmark indices at this point in time. several of the sectors have actually moved up, helping the indices really recover from the opening lows. The Adani Group stocks still very, very volatile in trade. It's not really helped the way Gautam Adani really came out and made that statement for all these investors to really provide that, end support in today's trading session. There's slight recovery, but we'll have to see whether that is sustainable on a long-term basis as well. Many thanks for joining us onto this show, but do stay tuned onto Business Today TV, because the whole of the day we will be tracking the Adani Group stocks, the FOMC impact on the larger macroeconomy, and the post-budget fine print that you should be really tracking in terms of the sectors and stocks all through the day. So do stay tuned with us, and also you can engage with us via other social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Many thanks for tuning in.
Personal income tax. I have 5 major announcements to make in this regard. These primarily benefit our hard-working middle class. First one concerns rebate. Currently,